Okay, so at this stage, we need to start drawing our design ideas. Now, you can see in the mark scheme, it says generating and developing design ideas. The topic, and it's worth a lot of marks, this bit, so we need to make sure that it's really detailed and comprehensive. So it says for top grades, considering a range of design strategies, techniques and approaches, and applied an iterative design process to generate and communicate a range of initial ideas, which fully reflects all the requirements. So iterative is where basically you do a drawing and you just constantly, it's like a circular, you evaluate it and then you try and make some improvements and you evaluate it again and you make some improvements. Before you kind of start though, you don't have to do this, but usually I would do just 3 general ideas that just meet the specification points. So if you look back at the specification points, the most important things that the design ideas have to do are the must and should. Okay, so what I would do is, to start with, is I'd make a list of all of the, it says here on this bit, look back at your final design specification and then make a simplified list of the most important aspects of your product that your product should have. So, you know, a simplified list. We're not looking like you need to copy and paste every single specification point, just simplify it into 1 word or 2 words, just to make a list so that it's really clear when you're doing your design ideas that they meet the specification, particularly the must and should. Ideally, it could do some of the coulds or mights, some of the less important specification points, but it's got to do the must, and it's definitely got to do the must, and ideally it should do the should. Okay, and then what you're going to do is you draw your design idea that carries out all the most important specification points. And I'm suggesting 3 design ideas. You don't have to do this, you know, you might do 2 design ideas, ideally just doing 3 initial design ideas. Then you fine liner them, add colour, it links back to your specification, fully explain how your design meets, fully explain how your design ideas carry out all the most important specification points all around the design ideas, and then find or draw some images around your idea that shows examples of specific aspects and then explain them. Okay, so what I've done is I used isometric paper, and you can see it just helps you make the products 3D by following the 30-degree lines and the vertical lines. So I've just drawn 3 relatively simple, these 2 are relatively simple chair designs, just keeping them fairly simple, and this one's slightly more organic, slightly more complicated. And I've used a crating exercise where basically I've just drawn a box to put it in and then use that to help guide the design. And this is just one way. You don't have to use this. You can use whatever drawing methods you want. You can use oblique projection, 1-point perspective, however you want to draw it. What I've done then is I've just traced them, and I've just made some additional changes whilst tracing them. So I've rounded some of the corners, you know, just made some little bits of changes that stem from this. So traced it, but you know, just to try and improve the design a little bit. Okay, I'm looking kind of slotting things together, so I've just kind of brought things through because I want it to be a flat pack product or easy to construct. So you can see just little bits kind of ideally slot together. What I've done then is you need to add colour. Now I've scanned these in. Now if you are going to do the scanning in, you need to fine liner it carefully so it's a totally closed area. Don't be leaving any little bits that aren't fine lined. The whole thing needs to be closed, which means if that is a shape, the whole shape needs to be linked together. Okay, so if you want to use Photoshop or something else to add colour to these like I've done, then you need to make sure you fine liner them carefully and then scan them in or photograph them, and then you can copy and paste it into like a Photoshop program. And then I have done, I've added colour, and I've used inspiration from things that they're interested in. So Sale Sharks, this chair is inspired by the colours in Sale Sharks. Manchester United away kit, golf, like a golf bag, so it's inspired by these aspects. Now you can see here in the top left hand corner I've done the must and should spec points, the full list of just simplified specification points for the must and should. And then I've used these specification points to help me think about what I need to annotate. So take this one, pallets could be used to keep the costs down. And down here it talks about keeping the costs down, so you get good value for money. So I've talked about using recycled pallets. And then it's inspired by Sale Sharks logo, which relates to my client's interests. Well, relates to interests. So I'll just put it there. So it's got to be clear of how you've done everything. And I've just put little pictures on as well, which help, that I got off the internet, that helps to explain what I'm saying. So slot together, I managed to find, just typed in slot together furniture and found a little image, the link that explains that. This is made from newspaper wood, which is sustainable. So I've just put a little picture of newspaper wood of the material. This is a recycled mixed plastic lumber, and I found a picture of it, and then I could maybe make it out of that. And this is obviously a pallet. There's a little, I'll put a little image of a fingerprint, because on this bit it says personal connection. So I've put maybe like a little image, just as a little detail piece on the back of a chair. Sizes, if you do it in Photoshop, if you do it in PowerPoint, or you copy and paste into PowerPoint, you can create arrows really easily. If you just go to insert and shapes, you can go to arrows, and then you just do your writing if the size is above and explain why you've done it that big. So if you had a read of that, then it should hopefully be clear. Now, if you're not comfortable using Photoshop, I'm just going to quickly do a demonstration of how I did it. So if I go back to my design and copy my images, I've already opened Photoshop. I'm going to open up a new page. So if you go to File and New, International Paper Size, I'm going to change it to A3 here, and I'm just going to swap over the width and the height. So it's going to be 420 by 297. So I want it to be landscape. So I'm going to get my images that I've managed to email to myself, because I've scanned them in and I've emailed them to myself. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use the snipping tool. It's just this one, new. And I'm just going to snip the images that I've got. And then I'm going to copy and then paste it into the page that I've just created. Control V. Now it's only tiny at the minute, so I want to enlarge it. One of the options to enlarge it is the little arrow at the top, and it should put little lines around the outside. So if you hold down the Shift key, which is a little arrow above the Control key, it does it in proportion. Okay. Now I've got my images on the page, how I want them to be. Now, if I wanted this to be inspired by the Sale Sharks logo, well, then I would go on to, and it could be inspired by anything. Well, let's say it's inspired by Sale Sharks logo. All right, so if I take this one and go back to Photoshop, right, okay. So I want to use the colors in the Sale Sharks logo. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the little swatch, which is this one at the bottom. And then if you click on the color that you like, it should pick out that color, and that's what it is. If you then click OK, you can then use that for your design. Now, if you have a look down the right hand side here, you've got layers. Now at the moment, you can see the tiny little emblem, and that's the Sale Sharks logo. If I click on this layer, it means it goes back to the 3 chairs that I wanted. Now, there's a little paint bucket just here. I can then click on anything that I want to be that color. Okay. Now, I can then maybe, if I wanted to click on the little swatch, if I want to make it slightly lighter, I can go slightly up here. I can use a slightly lighter blue, just so that it changes it a little bit, just considering light, dark and medium, just kind of help the design. And if I want a slightly darker blue, I can go the other way to most of the blacker section, and then I can then just change it. So if you think about a light source hitting it, then it just makes it look a little bit more 3D. So if the light, say for example, was above, and the top bit might be lighter, this side would be darker, and this side would be like a medium. So you can then just have a play around with it to kind of keep it looking the way you want it to look. Okay, when you finish that, you can then, if you click on the top layer, hold down the Shift key, which is above the control, and it selects all the layers together. You can then select all around all of them, and then it's edit and copy merged, and then you can put it into the Photoshop, into where you want it to be. So Control and V again, and it'll just paste it in. Not enough memory, that's annoying. So the other option is go back to Photoshop and use the snipping tool. Let's see if that works. Doesn't take up as much memory, I don't think, this way. Okay, copy. There you go. So that's probably a better way of doing it. You just kind of snip it. Okay, so that is what hopefully your end thing should look like. It needs to be really comprehensive and cover all the specification points, must and should. Okay, thank you for watching.